My name's Sue Sutley, and I live at 30 Lindor Way, and we've lived here 19 years and own a lot for 40. First of all, I just want to applaud you for voting down the Balboa and golf course and clubhouse at this time. My suggestion is to start collecting a surcharge now and putting it in a designated fund, especially for that expense, and not to be spent anywhere else on anything else but the Balboa course renovation, not even the clubhouse, since there's no agreement about that. And I don't, not a $5 surcharge, but a $2 surcharge, and this may come across as unpopular, but I think that everyone should pay the surcharge because it is improving an amenity that increases the value of everyone's home in the village. And so I, for one, don't play pickleball or bocce, but my assessment went to improve those amenities, same as the pool. So I think if you started now and everyone, that seed money would grow that much faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate your comments. Okay. Next up, Sheri Craig also wanted to speak about Balboa. Sheri, would you like to come up?
My foot is late.
It's been a long meeting.
Yeah, well, a lot of what I was going to say is not really applicable anymore, but, Sheri Craig, floor is going to place. But I want to go ahead and make some of my points anyways, because I think they're applicable. There is a need in the POA for improved project management skills. It's been that way for a long time. If I would have taken a project as far as the Balboa Club project lot without following some proved practices, I would have been let go from my job. I know they did a lot of work, but now that we have the opportunity to have a mulligan, I'd like to go ahead and suggest some things. Before we move forward any further, I'm glad that we are going to take the time to do it right. And based on project practices, we know that projects have a greater success rate if we take the time to do 3 things up front. 1, an accurate analysis of the needs of the project. 2, detailed specifications about what is required to achieve the goal that we're trying to accomplish. And 3, a detailed project plan. And I've worked at the POA, I've seen the contracts. You don't go into any contract until you have these in place, okay? The first thing that you need is a detailed needs analysis, which develops a well thought out requirements document. The project specifications includes a project scope, which defines the tasks and deliverables in the critical path. And in this case, the critical path was before, we had to get there before the grass died. Is to kill the grass. That's not a really good reason to start a project of that expense. Okay, we need to have accurate identifications of required resources, including a detailed cost analysis, which I think was lacking. A viable, realistic sources of funding. A lot of what I saw were not reliable. They were pie-in-the-sky ideas. We need identification of all key players, including internal and external staffing requirements. If you don't define what we need to do, the risk increases dramatically for failure. If you don't define what you need to do, the third thing in the project scope is,
This is where you start dancing.
okay, financial analysis
No,
Okay.
the 3 minutes are up.
Okay. All right. But anyways, that's my drift. You need analysis, specification, and a project plan, okay?
Thank you, Sheri. I'd like to call Tom Ament up. He wants to talk about the 2020 budget.
I'm Tom Ament, and I live at 20 in Trottaway, and I'll be very brief. I know you added a ad hoc committee in the operating and budget process for this year, and I did not get below probably page 8 or 10 so far in reading. I am very surprised that you do not have a column in there that shows 8 months actual and the remaining estimate for the remaining 4 months, because I thought our accounting system is fast enough that we could have had that. Secondly, I'm amazed of the comment that 90% of our revenue and expenses are in the 2 pages of items over 50,000. I'm amazed they're not grouped by department. And also, how can we have a miscellaneous line of revenue of $1.4 million? You mean to tell me we can't figure out where to put money? Finally, I hope that the detailed budgets on October 1 and 2 provide headcount, salary and benefits, and expenses by each department grouped together to include more detail on, for example, how much is compliance costing Woodlands, Coronado, Tennis, trails, which nobody wants to talk about, and the various clubs. And lastly, I don't see anything in October 1 and 2 that will allow the public to comment on those presentations. I guess the question is, will we be allowed? Because in 2017 budget, I was allowed to comment, and they were going to do a 12% raise, I think it was 217, in annuals. Because I was allowed to comment, it was 4 times the rate of inflation. They backed off. The very next year, I sat down right here at the first set of presentations, and the board president walked up to me and said, "Oh, by the way, you're not allowed to ask any questions. You don't get good input from the rest of the public without it." So I hope we hear at those chance at October 1 and 2 to give some comment, because the board does not have the answers or questions on everything. Thank you for your hard
Thank you,
work.
Mr. Ament. I would like to invite Sue Sutley. Am I pronouncing that correctly? She wants to speak about the Balboa Golf Course.
I think she left.
She left.
Did we outlast her? Oh, sure. Okay, at this point, I'd like to invite Dan Daddieco to the podium.
First request is you get longer goosenecks. My name is Dan Daddieco. I live at 4 Splendor Place. In my lifetime, I have lived happily in 10 different communities. In that time, I have never entertained thoughts of moving because of the political climate. Moving was always a carefully planned event for me to better my lifestyle. Relocating to Hot Springs Village, I thought, would be my final destination. Given the turmoil we are experiencing in the village, I find myself, unfortunately, once again, desperately trying to make a decision whether to stay or go. The constant angst and divisiveness is affecting my happiness and the quality of my life. I love all of the village, I love everything that the village has to offer, don't get me wrong. However, our current administration continues to ignore the voice of property owners, nearly a day goes by where some new controversy reaches out and grabs me for my attention. The recent firing of Mr. Dick Garrison has led me to reach out to you today with hopes that you will rearrange your priorities and simply do the right thing. This message is all about second chances. Many of us have been granted second chances during our lives, and most of us appreciate the opportunities to correct some of those opportunities to correct our mistakes. Some of us who have acted irrationally and made regrettable mistakes due to poor judgment have been granted second chances to right some wrongs. Second chances can be granted in most any situation, whether it be a second chance at a friendship lost or a second chance for a longer life with the aid of a miracle drug. I will go out on a limb and state that there's no one in this room that hasn't been granted a second chance at some point in their lives. Property owners, by default, have been granting you multiple second chances when you've made mistakes. I don't want to go down a rat hole, but I want to remind you of where property owners have afforded you, by default again, the luxury of some second chances. Very quickly, the CNP, $500,000. The security gate system that doesn't work, $180,000. The numerous restaurants managed or subsidized by the POA. Rusting and collapsing culverts. The lack of transparency in the secret meetings. Failure after failure, and still, we property owners gave you all second chances, and most importantly, and this is really key, I really need you to listen to this. No one got fired. Let me say it again. All those failures, and no one got fired.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
I'll be quick. It's your turn to give back, okay? You need to reinstate Dick Garrison.
Okay, all right. 3 minutes up. Thank you. I'd like to call Keith Hall up, please. Keith, welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's still September, isn't it? My name is Keith Hall. I live at 3 Jaguar Circle, and I have been a resident for nearly a decade. Excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. As bona fides and past service is so important here in this village, let me give you mine. I am a retired career soldier, a former senior civilian in the national intelligence community, and a former CEO of a like-sized corporation under contract and asset for maintenance for the International Space Station. Simply put, I have sat in your chair and faced many of the same challenges that you now find yourself confronting. During my time here, I have watched each iteration of the board and staff grapple with post-Cooper transition challenges, ranging from the inherited bad debt of historically deferred maintenance to professionalizing the corporate effort and posturing the community for future success. These are significant challenges given the history and the unusual demographics of the village. I have found board of directors and senior staff leadership actions of the past 3 years consistent with modern operational practices. While there's always room for improvement, recent previous boards and the CEO have clearly demonstrated the desire to prepare this community for a world much changed since 1970. What I saw and have repeatedly seen, and what I saw again here today, was simply good governance in action. It was contentious, it was conciliatory, but it was good governance. Certainly mistakes have been made, and there are processes in need of your direct attention and emphasis. This is the nature of communities and complex organizations of which we are both. But none have been so egregious as to warrant reprehensible public behaviors, incessant ad hominem attacks, and threats to members of this community conveyed verbally, in the media, and in social media. Nor do they require tearing this institution down instead of just working the problem. This ongoing behavior is shameful. It's embarrassing to the community, and it's counterproductive because the world is watching. I find no evidence of grand conspiracies or surreptitious activities. Quite the opposite. I have been provided pertinent facts when requested by simply using corporate bylaws and policy and inherently governmental processes. The bottom line is that the board of directors, the CEO, and the entire staff are doing yeoman's work in an extremely difficult environment created by suspect development practices from previous decades and creation of a culture which is unnecessarily adversarial, and clearly does not understand professional and personal standards of conduct. While I may have concerns about specific operations in this community, I am more appalled by the disintegration of civil behavior in public. I support all of your actions to date, all of them. I encourage you to continue refining those
I
processes.
believe the timer went off, didn't it, Ms. Parliamentarian? We called 3 minutes on everybody else.
Diane, I also let them complete.
Yes, but we interrupted.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Yeah, next up, Jean, oh, help me again. This Jean, Leslie, do you recognize that name?
Let me get to the mic and I'll tell you.
Oh, rescue?
We're sure.
We're sure? Oh, welcome, Jean.
For sure.
And he wants to talk about governance.
But I'm gonna talk about something else first. Sorry about that. Real quickly, it's been 7 years since I've been here. But y'all have forced my hand. Let me say that. I'm not pleased with 90% of the people on the board. And I'm not gonna name names. I think you're directly wrong. You should be giving this man and not throwing away my vote. If you want to censor him, censor him. But I can tell everybody out here right now who will be on this board. If you don't know Ralph Turpin, you're going to appoint him. And I know it. I know it. So, for me, I'm so disappointed in moving here. You've done so many things that have been wrong. So many. And let me say this. You've done some things right. Some mostly wrong. I think, I want to be civil. Ms. Knapp, you need to go. You need to go. That's all.
Thank you very much. Next up, on the topic of bylaws, Louise Henderson. Louise Henderson?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Louise Henderson. I live in Hot Springs Village. For 21 years, I've suffered through many boards and many general managers. I have also suffered through bylaws changes. And I don't think you brought this up on the agenda today. It was on the agenda for bylaws revisions, Section 6, Article 7, which has to do with,
That was removed from the agenda by board action today.
oh, you did remove it. I must have been asleep, sorry. Are you going to bring it up again?
We don't know. We haven't talked about it. came up.
Okay, when it comes up, then I will save my remarks until then because I think it's very confusing what you're attempting to do.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you very much.
Could I invite George Donnelly to talk about bylaws? George?
My name is George Donnelly, live at 1 Curso Lane. I've been a resident for 13 years. And with the removal of Mr. Garrison, I heard a number of neighbors say, I don't understand, this hasn't happened in 49 years. But it's part of the bylaws, so it's okay. So that made me do a little digging into the history documents I have. And I think they need to be put on the record. So in the bylaws that were in place November of 2011, for example, 8 short years ago, the only way to remove a director was if he missed 3 meetings in a row. Probably more importantly, the powers and duties of the board of directors, I'll read into the record real quick, to appoint and remove at pleasure all officers, agents, employees of the association, prescribe their duties, fix their compensation, require of them security and fidelity bond, blah, blah, blah. Such duties as provided in the paragraph may be delegated to a general manager, but it wasn't required. The board had power, maybe too much, and I understand some changes may have been required. By March of 16, we now had the ability to remove the director for missing 3 meetings and or if he was not in good standing, hadn't paid his assessments. We move forward to March of 17, and now we see things like governing power, individual board members shall have no power of government or administration, and they can be removed for interfering directly in the management of the association. And on it goes. July of 19, that was expanded further. And yet, still in 19, we do have a chief executive officer who is subject to the supervision and direction of the board of directors, and yet if a director interferes, we'll remove him. So I don't blame everybody sitting here because I just went back to 2011 and 2014, 16, and I agree that the way things were done was purely a community and maybe individual board members had too much power and could interfere too much. But this has shifted so far the other way that it's absurd. Garrison should be brought back. He ran on the idea of revising the bylaws back to giving the board more power. We had a community. Now we have a business, Leslie's business, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have time for one more. Michael McDonald, please. Michael?
Why did you not go in order? And I was assigned to speak on something that was in the agenda. For those of us that you said you weren't called on that were signed up to speak on agenda items. And I just wonder why you ignored some of us.
I wanted to reach out to those, first of all, that were on agenda topics, which we got through, and then people that we have not heard from.
Mine was agenda topic. It was on governance, which is on the agenda.
Okay, and I wanted to hear from people, we wanted to hear from people we have not heard from, and we hear from you each week. Mr. Rust, I will call on you next if your topic remains on governance. Fair enough?
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. That's a good compromise, thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, my name is Michael McDonald. I reside at 22 Panorama Drive on the east end with my wife Janet. We are members of good standing since 2011. My first comment regards complimenting the board for all the time they put in, good and bad time. I've some friends that are on the board and I know what they go through. Their phones are ringing all day long, not counting the meetings they got to go in and everything else. So you have my admiration for that. Having said that, I'm really pissed about Dick Garrison. Really pissed about Dick Garrison. You have negated my vote. And apparently it wasn't clear cut because the vote appeared to be on partisan lines. Partisan meaning old board members, newly seated board members. Okay? Okay? I'm not asking for confirmation of that. I just suspect that by the count. So it wasn't clear cut. There was some subjectivity to it. And to an earlier comment about a second chance, if anybody deserves a second chance, it's him. God knows that POA department heads have had lots of them with all the fiascos that were discussed earlier. I suggest, if you're not going to reseat Dick Garrison, that you follow a process that goes to the next highest vote getter from the last board election. What could be fairer than that? Rather than some old hack you bring back and forth, okay? So, okay, and my final comment is, the board needs to act and vote like the CEO reports to them. And this comment is directed to Nancy, Cindy, Buddy, and Mike, okay? She reports to you. You don't report to her. Okay?
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Weiss, stay on topic with governance, we're good to go.
Thank you. Steve Rust, 11 Rhoda Lane. I would like to say that I am absolutely opposed to anyone that would threaten anyone in this village, whether it be a board member that I have strong disagreements with you, but I am totally opposed to anyone that would threaten you or key your car. That's beyond what I can even comprehend. Anybody would be that cruel. But I want to say that. I would also like to say that I'm a little disappointed in our prayer. We've invited someone to pray, and the prayer ends up as a speech to the villagers. When I pray to God. I don't pray to you or anyone else, and I would like to see our prayer become such a thing as that someone speaks to God and not to me, and trying to tell me how to think. Recently, I read a reference to the bylaws, Article 9, Section 3, about the duty of confidentiality. I have all these bylaws downloaded on my tablet, so I went to my tablet, and all these bylaws were downloaded in May 2019. When I looked at bylaws, I saw no reference to the duty of confidentiality in Article 9. I then went to the website and opened the bylaws to see the duty of confidentiality now in Article 9. Upon further investigation, I found the bylaws were amended in July 2019. Since there have been open discussions on bylaw changes, I wondered why this change to add the duties of confidentiality and so forth were not done openly, and why they were done just 2 months prior to a very unpopular decision by the board in an executive meeting to remove Dick Garrison. And I also would like to suggest, as another gentleman already has, that if you're going to replace him, that you go to the next highest one that was voted in the board elections.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. We're not going to conversation, but I do want to correct an error. We don't do any bylaws changes outside of the public view. So what you can do is, if you'd like to, you can work with Ella to trace back when those changes were made and what changes were made. But I wanted to make the record crystal clear. We don't do bylaws changes outside of the public eye.
I have the May copy of them, and I have the July copy of them right here, and there are differences in them.
I can assure you there's an explanation for it that does not involve any private.
Chair Erickson. Chair Erickson. May I make a comment?
We are at the end of our 30 minutes. I'm going to ask the board if they want to continue.
Please, may I make a comment?
So, those that want to continue, raise your right hand and say yes. Those that want to adjourn, make a motion to adjourn, or raise your right hand and say no. No, okay. All right. We stand adjourned. Thank you.